Well, hi, everybody who is participating with us today. Thank you so much for coming to this webinar where we'll be learning all about Co-opable. For those of you who are not super familiar with myself, I am Denise Galiatsatos, the president and COO of PCG Digital, which is a branch of PCG companies. We're a full service digital marketing agency serving all of our dealerships that we work with SEO, SEM, social advertising, and a couple other things in between. And I am thrilled to sit here today with Mark Baruth. Mark, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Thank you, Denise. Yeah, my name is Mark Baruth. I'm the CEO, co-founder here of Co-opable, and I'm sure we'll get into a lot of what Co-opable is, so I won't dive into that too much. But I've been in the automotive category for about 15 years here with companies like Cox Automotive and Cars.com, Automotive Mastermind. So I'm thrilled to be joining you today, Denise.
Awesome. Great. And just a little backstory. I met Mark and the Co-opable team at our recent conference, the Digital Marketing Strategies Conference. It was our first year doing it in Scottsdale, Arizona. And we were all excited to be there together. But, I met Mark and his team and learned a lot about Co-opable. And I'm really excited to, bring it forward today to those of you that are joining the webinar to understand who and what they are. So, Mark, let's just get into it. Why Co-opable? How did this come to be?
That's a great question. So, we are spun out of a company that's an advertising agency that's been in business for about 19 years. And we had lots of automotive clients who were not taking great advantage of their co-op. And we started offering that as a little bit of a consulting service internally to our clients and found that we were really able to help them maximize their spend, not only just for advertising, but for several facets of the dealership that maybe people didn't even know they could use it for, such as CRM tools or chat tools, or even like the advertising on their closed circuit televisions inside the dealership, or remodels, or anything like that. So the co-op funds could be used in a lot of different ways. And once we figured out that that was something that our clients were interested in, we said maybe this is its own business and maybe we should.
Wow.
So, so we started a co-opable a little bit over a year ago with our first clients in about May and June of 2024. And here we are several hundred dealers later, way bigger need than we probably thought even, way more exciting product than we thought even. And Co-opable has become its own company with its own lifeblood. And I've been full-time Co-opable for almost a year now. And so yeah, it's been a very fast journey, one that I don't think we could have anticipated, but clearly shows and demonstrates that there's a need for this service that we offer inside of the business.
Awesome. And a need indeed. Obviously what drew me to the company was, I sit on a lot of our client calls. I'm talking to our dealers constantly, and a huge pain point for them is the ebb and flow of co-op. So, how is co-opable today really, resolving pain points at the dealership and helping their personnel?
Yeah, so I think what is really important about Co-opable is that we have a level of expertise that frankly just has not existed in the business before us. So when you needed co-op help, your point of reference might have been somebody, a regional rep, or it might have been somebody at an Ansira or something like that, who doesn't necessarily have 100% of your best interest in mind. So we come in as an agnostic partner. We don't care, what you're doing, who you're doing it with, anything along those lines. We're just there to help you maximize your solutions and your revenue and your co-op dollars as much as you possibly can. So what we do for dealerships is we kind of start with a state of the union. When somebody decides that they're interested in working with Co-opable, we come in and we do an audit of the account and we look as far back as that OEM will allow us to go. And that's typically 6 to 12 months. And we'll look at every single solution that's being executed by the dealership and whether or not they're submitting it for co-op or not.
Mhm.
We ask, please send us every single vendor invoice that you have. Whether you think it's eligible for co-op or not, we know some of the dark arts, some of the gray areas of the programs, and there might be opportunities for us to claim funds that you didn't know that you could claim. We have seen crazy things from doing these audits, Denise. We've seen uh, millions of dollars that have expired for dealerships in the past 12 months before just
Wow.
they didn't know. We just started working with a dealership this past month where they said, we're in pretty good shape. I think you can look if you want to, but I think we're in good shape. Yeah, they had $2.1 million that was set to expire in the next 90 days. And so so obviously that opened up a whole new world of advertising and opportunities for them. So that State of the Union is really where we kind of figure out, do you need the help? Because we're very transparent about the fact that we don't work with dealerships who don't need our help. If
Hmm.
you have this process on lock and you're doing great and it's not something you feel is taking up a lot of your time, that's fine. But I'd say for 90% of the dealers, that's not the case. So
Hmm.
we want to make sure that there is a need for our service, but once we establish that, then we really start to dig in and say how far back can we go and get you funds that you should have already gotten but you missed? And then what can we do to make sure that that doesn't happen again going forward?
Hmm. So say I'm in the dealership, right? And I am one of those people that's like, I've got this down pat. I'm covered. What could I look at today to maybe say, you know what? Maybe I don't have everything that I need to. Maybe I should contact Co-opable. Where would a dealership start?
Well, I think what they need to do is they need to, first of all, log into their portal. The number of dealerships for whom I ask when we start our relationship say, hey, go ahead and log into your portal. Uh, the number of them who say, what's my password? What's my username? How do I get that? That's problem number
Oh,
one. That might be
okay.
your first sign that you need help if you don't know how to get in. But we can help you with that. But yeah, log into your portal, and I like to say put on your accountability glasses, right? Like don't assume that everything's going okay. Don't assume that you're using everything that you can. Really take a really accountable look at it and figure out, do I know what I'm doing or could I use some help? The question that we ask dealers all the time, and I encourage dealers to ask themselves, is rate yourself from 1 to 10 on co-op.
Okay.
And so few have ever said 10 out of 10. I think the only ones who ever say 10 out of 10 are the ones who just want to get us off the phone.
Right.
Most of them, if they're being honest with themselves, 5, 6, or 7 is about where they fall. And I'm like, okay, so for every number underneath 10 that you have rated yourself, depending on the size of your dealership, you've probably lost $100,000 for every one of those numbers. So if you're a 9, you've probably lost 100 grand. If you're an 8, you've probably lost 200 grand, so on and so forth. And that's probably conservative, to be honest with you. But
Hmm.
so I would say, um, as painful as it is, download the program documentation, download the requirements, and try to read them. If you feel like you've read through the 62 pages of the Subaru document or the 120 plus pages of the Mazda document, and you're like, yeah, I feel like I feel good about this, then great. I don't know anybody who does. So
Right.
if you do, great. But that would be rare. Most of the time people's eyes start to glaze over after about page 10 or 11 of
Yep.
columns of 8-point font, right? And
Right.
starting to figure out the different funds. I mean, if you're a Mazda dealership, you have 3 different funds you need to work with, right? If you're a GM dealership, you've got match versus non-match and navigating that. If you're a Subaru dealership, there's 3 different levels you might qualify for.
Hmm.
There's some regions of the country where there's lots more money than there are in some other regions. So the national programs don't really apply. So I would say, the first thing you really need to do is just if you say I'm a 10 out of 10, great, but are you really? Or do you
Hmm.
just feel like you are? And if you really
Right.
are, then cool, you're probably one of the 10% of the dealers who doesn't need our services. But I just don't feel like that's most dealerships. Most of the 10s out of 10s, like I said, the number of 10 out of 10s that we've talked to that we find one, two, three, four, 500, $600,000 for is pretty high. So
Hmm.
uh, it's just a matter of being honest with yourself and saying, do we really need the help?
Yeah, and I think that, one of the things we could definitely look at too with your company is, buying back the person who's in charge at the dealership of that co-op, buying back some time for them to maybe some other things. Because you and I both know that, in the dealership world, folks wear many hats,
Oh, yeah.
right? So my husband and I are always on this kick of how can we buy back time? Okay, well, we do Whole Foods delivery. We have since COVID. We realized we got so much time back and not having to go to a grocery store and it can just get delivered. That is worth our money to do something like that. So, talk to us a little bit for some of the people that are on the call is how can this buy back some time for some of these people in the dealership that have kind of inherited this as their task? How do you jump in? What do you take over?
Well, so we say it's A to Z. It's literally everything to have to do with co-op. So you will, if you work with Co-opable, you will never think about co-op again. And
Oh my gosh.
that is the goal, and that is our promise to you. And there are dealer groups all across the country who can speak to that being the truth.
Mhm.
Some of the largest dealer groups that we work with, 30 plus stores, it's falling on somebody's head. And it's falling on typically a marketing director or it could be a general manager. I mean, in some cases, it could be the office manager, which is always a little dangerous. I've seen an HR person doing co-op before. It's very rare that any group, if you are not one of the big public groups, that you would have a full-time dedicated co-op person on your staff. It's just very rare because we see this a lot in the dealership world where you understand how important something is, but it's also difficult to put on a financial statement.
Right.
Like, well, I know it's really important to have somebody focused on this, but how do I quantify that? So for what we charge, I think it makes a lot of sense for somebody because you are buying back that time in spades. Co-op in and of itself can be complicated, just the submission of it that alone is challenging. But then if you're really looking at things like, okay, well, am I optimizing my co-op? Am I using the dollars in the best possible way that I could? Am I
Mhm.
getting the best possible results for that? And then, if you look at the appeals process, so let's say something gets declined, we see this quite often where vendors are just providing kind of this you know part very very standardized, I guess is the right word I'm using, documentation, right? So whether you're a Hyundai
Sure.
store, a Mazda store, a GM store, that vendor's just packaging up stuff and sending it out to you, and
Mhm.
they don't know if it really works or not. They don't know if it really applies or not, and so how much time you need to do spending down, if your Mazda, co-op rep comes back to you and says this is declined.
Right.
Okay, so then how much time are you chasing down invoices, chasing down screenshots, chasing down tear sheets, chasing down notarized scripts, all these sorts of things that are really just eating up time and hours and hours and hours. We handle all of that.
Mhm.
So it's not just the submission. The submission in and of itself can be time consuming for sure, but that's everything that goes along with that. It's measuring, it's optimizing, it's utilizing it to its fullest. And then when CDJR asks you for proof of payment, which they say they do randomly, but they pretty much do it every single month. Do you want to call vendors and track all that down? I mean, I used to work for Automotive Mastermind, like I said, in the field. I had about 40 stores that were all submitting documentation for co-op. And it was my job as a field rep to get that documentation to them. I can tell you, I personally got them that documentation on the very last day possible because
Right.
because there's so many other things to do, right? So if that documentation was due on June 15th, you probably got it June 15th at 4 p.m.
Right.
You
Right.
from me. And I know and I just know a lot of vendors are that way. It doesn't rank really highly in their levels of attention.
Sure.
So we manage that for you. If we don't have the documentation, we call the vendor. We chase it down. So we've actually corrected the behavior of a good number of vendors over the past year or so. Just like, hey, don't wait till the June 15th at 4 p.m.
Right.
We need that on, June 1st. We need to get that all set for you. So yeah, buying back time, I think that's a great way of looking at it because if you really add up all the time you spend on co-op, it's way more than you think it is.
Right. Definitely. And, one of the things that is always very appealing to any dealers that, we work with at PCG, is maximizing, ad spend dollars, all of that. So can you walk us through the process of how Co-opable really does maximize the co-op reimbursement for dealers? What does that process look like?
Yeah, so I think there's probably a lot of dealers on this call, and certainly a lot of dealers everywhere who are using turnkey because it's easy, not because it's good. And I
Hmm.
think that is very, very common. One of the questions that we dig into with dealers when we first start working with them is, are these the vendors you like, or are these the vendors you have to use? And which is it? And in fact, I was listening to one of my cold callers just a couple of weeks ago, maybe even last week, calling a dealer, and he was kind of brushing her off as people do with cold calls typically. And then the question she asked was, "Well, are you using the vendors you like or the vendors you have to?" He's like, "I guess I'm using the vendors I have to." And like they end up taking the meeting with us and buying co-opable services because that is so critically important to a dealership. Um, Are you using a cutter rubber stamp solution that every single other dealer in your market is using? Or are you having the latitude and the luxury of using the vendors that you want to use? Now, there are certainly some programs that are more locked down than others, but like I said, we know the dark arts, we know the gray areas, we know how to help you get reimbursed for things that maybe you don't think that you can. We
Hmm.
never break rules. We never commit and do anything fraudulent. We never do anything that might cause a dealership to get a strike or anything like that. We're very
Okay, that's yeah.
cautious about that. But what we do is we have a very liberal interpretation of the rules, and we look at that and we submit things that maybe you don't think you can, and 99 out of 100 times we get it approved. So then that 100th time we get a new document and we resubmit it and we get that approved. So we have a very high success rate with those sorts of things. So we are agnostic. We want to make sure that it doesn't matter to me which vendors you use, but it does matter to me that the vendors you use are in the best service of your dealership. And so we will look at that, and we don't take kickbacks from anybody. We don't offer referral fees to vendors, anything like that. For us, it's very much along the lines of what if somebody works with us, and we're recommending somebody we don't let me back that up.
Sure.
We partner with companies who refer business to us, but we never refer business to anybody else. I guess
Hmm.
it's kind of the way that I would say that. So, and the reason being is we want you to know that if we're making a recommendation to you based on your co-op, it's because the way we look at it is that's the best possible use of your dollars. So, like I said, I've been in marketing for 15 plus years. Most of my team has been as well. Our lead co-op program manager has been doing co-op at the dealership level for 18 years. So
Hmm.
she knows all of the best ways to maximize those dollars as well. So this is not just theoretical knowledge that we have. We are experts in the field, and we only hire experts in the field. I actually took a little bit of flack the other day because we're growing so much that we need to expand our team. And I put it right out there on LinkedIn. I'm like, hey, if you haven't been doing co-op at a dealership level yourself for 5 years, you can't work for us. We
I
only
saw
hire
that.
experts, right?
Yep.
And and a couple of people are like, well, you're probably missing out on some good talent. I'm like, maybe I am, but I'm not willing to train amateurs on the job. Like
Right.
my clients are too important to me. And so, if you don't know how to do this frontwards, backwards, if you don't have the program guidelines memorized, you can't work here. And that's
Hmm.
kind of how we do that. So we treat it very seriously in that respect. So from an optimization standpoint, making sure people are using all the dollars that they can in the best possible way, that's how we're going to go about it, is just helping you select the right solutions at your dealership with that get the results that you want, rather than just saying, well, these are the four vendors we had to pick from.
Hmm. Right. And I will say, having spoken to your team, I took a demo as if I was a dealer. There wasn't one question that your team couldn't answer as
Mhm.
far like that is so impressive, to understand all of these guidelines. I mean, it didn't matter what, OEM I was referring to, what they had an answer for everything, which was, just beautiful and, truly top notch. When we think of the gray area, what is the craziest thing that you have seen a dealership get reimbursed for that they were like, I never thought that that could ever happen?
Um, there's a lot. I would say the one that's probably jumps out to me the most is we had a partner company come to us. I won't say their name because I'm not here to endorse anybody, but they came to us with a training and development solution and said, "Hey, we
Okay.
want we want to get training done at dealerships. Is there any way that can be co-opted?" I'm like, "Absolutely not." I was
Right.
like, "Definitely not." But then my team dug into it and they found a little bit of a loophole. And they said, okay, General Motors will approve this as long as it is marketing training. I'm like, okay. So let's figure that out, right? So I went back to the vendor and said, what parts of your program would you consider to be marketing training? Well, certainly BDC training would fall under that, right? Because
Mhm.
you have to have outbound calls and outbound marketing, right? That you're making to dealerships. Certainly anything along the lines of teaching salespeople how to do like walk around videos, things like that. That counts as marketing, things like that. So we went through their curriculum, we looked at and we labeled what we thought was marketing, and we submitted those things for expenses, and sure enough, got approved.
Unbelievable.
And I was like, whew, okay, didn't I mean I shot that down instantly.
Wow.
And so because that, most co-op is designed for marketing and advertising, right? But
Right.
but General Motors is like, we'll do marketing training. We'll allow that to be reimbursed. So we found that in, subsection 12, paragraph 6, whatever it was of some IMR document somewhere, and we got that done. So there's a lot of things like that where we've had vendors specifically ask us, or dealers really ask us, hey, I love working with this vendor. I don't think they're co-op approved. We can typically find something that they do. It might not be the whole solution. And it might be, a way that the invoice needs to look a little bit different than it does the way they originally send it to us. Again,
Hmm.
nothing incorrect or fraudulent, but something like where if you've got a package, right? Like if you've got a vendor that says, hey, we do a package for $5,000. Well, General Motors isn't going to approve that. They're going to say, what's in this package, right?
Right. Right.
Who knows? So we have to go back and we have to itemize that out. And quite often we're going in and we're putting 10 text boxes on an invoice saying, well, this is for this, this is for this, this is for this. And then we'll get, some portion of that approved. So I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of our partners do like working with us is we go above and beyond and trying to find those solutions. I think if we have a spreadsheet we use internally, it's kind of like our Dead Sea Scrolls or whatever it is.
Hmm.
It's
Right.
like, here's what they say they can get approved, and then here's what they can actually get approved. And those two documents look really different. So a lot of times we talk to dealers and or even vendors, and they'll tell me, nope, we can't get that approved. There's no way we've tried before. I'm like, let's take a crack at it. Let's see.
Yeah.
And I would say we don't have a 100% success rate, but our success rate is high enough, Denise, and this is a wild statistic that if it weren't my company and I didn't see the books, I wouldn't believe. We've never had a dealership cancel.
Unbelievable.
So
Yeah.
we started selling in May of last year, and we've yet to have a dealership come to us and say, we want to stop this service. We want that pain in that process back." It has never happened. So we have literally a 100% retention rate.
Awesome. That's great. And, that's a beautiful introduction into, my next question is the culture at Co-opable. So obviously at PCG Digital, I'm very big on kind of really having dealers be comfortable with the culture of us as an agency, how it is to work with us. So what is your company culture like? What's the onboarding process like? Say I'm a dealer here today and I'm like, I'm ready to get going. What does it look like?
Yeah, so the I think I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but I'll reiterate or dive deeper into this that everybody who's handling co-op at our company has done it at the dealership level for 15 plus years.
Wow.
So you are handing I mean, I remember talking to a general manager once and he said, the reason I manage it personally is because it's the biggest bank account I have. It's the most important amount of advertising money I have. I would never turn this over to anybody else.
Mhm.
We totally understand that, and that's why we don't hire and train people to do this job. We only hire people with existing expertise in this field. And we have people who are very specifically experts in each one of the OEMs. And it's wild because we had one dealer client reach out to us and say, "Hey, we would like you to do Porsche." We
Mhm.
didn't have anybody in the company who had Porsche expertise. And so we were pretty honest with the dealer and said, listen, I'm sure we can learn it, but we don't none of the people who work for us have worked in a Porsche dealership before. And so we said, well, we're happy to try. And they said, give it a go. Sure.
Right.
And said, okay, but I just want to let you know up front that this is not something that we are super expertise and have a super level of expertise. We logged into the portal. We're like, what's going to happen? It turns out they use exactly the same portal Hyundai does. So we're like, okay, we got it. So,
Okay,
um,
great.
but I think a culture word that we use is transparency. We're
That's good.
100% transparent. We provide a report at the end of every single month that shows you exactly what we've done for your company. Every single thing we've submitted, every single claim number, every single dollar that we've asked for, whether it got approved or not, where it stands. So you're going to have an incredible level of visibility into everything. Probably a much better understanding of your company's co-op accounts than you have today. So I
Mhm.
think that we're very transparent about everything that we do. We try to make sure that when dealers sign up, they know exactly what they're signing up for. And that as a result, we don't do long-term agreements either. We do 30 days at a time. And if you want to cancel at any point, we don't even require a notice. Just call me and say, don't bill me next month, and I'll say, okay. uh,
Wow.
because we are that confident that you'll love our services, and we're that confident that like I said, nobody's ever canceled. So we started with 12-month agreements, and then we realized, why do we need to do that? Nobody's ever canceled.
Hmm.
So it's a 30-day renewing agreement at a time. We have some people who tell us almost every month, you should charge us more money because what you guys do is worth more than you're charging for it. And we know that. We are probably, in that spirit of transparency, I think we're the only vendor on the planet who puts our pricing on our website. Like, you can go to coopable.com, you can scroll down and see exactly what we charge for things. Um,
Hmm.
there's no call for pricing or set up a call to find out or anything like that. It's like, here's what we charge.
Right.
So yeah, so I would say the culture is definitely, if there's one key word, I'd say it's transparency. Anybody who's met me, met Emily on our team, met Courtney or Kate or Nicole or any of the team, um, that culture kind of flows downhill from me. And I probably have a reputation in this business for talking too much and saying more things than I should. So we're always going to be really transparent and very open and honest about that. And we had a great session at DMSC. Where people came in and asked a lot of questions. And what's so funny is, as you know, Denise, you're not supposed to sell at DMSC, right? You're in your
Right.
it's an educational session. And we
Save
had
it
so
for the
many
booth.
people in the section going like, how much does this cost? Or how much
Right.
would it be potential? I'm like, I'm not selling in this session. This is educational. So we have a lot of integrity as well. I think, transparency and integrity. I think we have one client who signed up a brand with us that Mercedes just relaunched their program not that long
Hmm.
ago. And they changed everything, and we logged in. We knew the old Mercedes program, but we're going to learn the new Mercedes program. They were going to pay us our full fee for Mercedes. And we logged in and said, there's really nothing for us to do here. This is mostly a turnkey program. We can't really generate reporting, and they have it still locked down. So we called the dealer group and said, we're not going to bill you for this. Like, and we don't want this business going forward. But, as far as the dealer would have known, they never would have known that. We
Hmm.
could have just continued to bill them for it, but we're like, that's not the right thing to do here because you don't need our services. So yeah, I think hopefully that gives you a little bit of a sense of the culture and the integrity and the transparency that we aspire to have.
Beautifully said, definitely. And, leading into the next portion, we're almost at time already. This has been so informational and so great. And I'm so excited to be able to introduce Co-opable to everybody here on the webinar. I see some of our clients on here and some of my friends. And for those of you who have known me for years, when we choose to talk about a company at PCG Digital or work with a company, that Brian, Glenn, myself really, make sure that we are providing solutions to our dealers or to our friends and partners. I look at the culture, that's my whole piece of it. I want to understand the company. And so I'm so excited to announce today that PCG Digital is partnering with Co-opable for all of our friends and all of our digital partners, all of our clients. If you are interested in Co-opable and learning more about them, you can email me. I will put my email in the chat. You will receive, if you go through myself, a beautiful PCG digital pricing at Co-opable. I'm so excited to be able to announce this. I love taking on a great partner at our agency. I love when me and my team can work with really awesome people. I love when we can provide solutions for our digital partners and clients. And I'm thrilled to announce this today live on this webinar between us and Co-opable. Um, so the Co-opable team will be now featured on our partner store on our website. And I will send everybody here the link to that. And also, again, I will put my email address right in the chat for those of you who don't have it. So if you'd like to set up a demo with the Co-opable team, you can just reach out to me and I'll take care of that for you. Mark, any final thoughts about the partnership or anything for all of our attendees that are here with us today?
I mean, I wanna co-sign that enthusiasm, Denise. It's exciting for us to be partnered with PCG because we know the type of company that PCG is, the quality, the integrity, the expertise. It's just a thrill for us to be associated with you and the team. And I think, well, I can speak for everybody at Co-opable when we say that there's nobody we'd rather be partnered with. This is a hugely exciting partnership for us. So we are excited to be able to offer our services to your clients at that discounted rate. So when you go to our website and you see that transparent price, you're going to pay less than that, which is really exciting.
Yeah.
And so and I will also say, Denise, I don't even think we said this between the two of us, but I'm just gonna say, oh, I'm gonna grandfather that price for life. So anybody who signs up for you with that pricing, we will not raise their prices.
Awesome.
For as long as they serve us. So 20 years from now, when I'm on a boat in Key West, you'll be paying the same price that you pay today. So I'm very excited about that. And yeah, thank you so much for having us. I hope this was informational for you and your partners, and we're looking forward to a great partnership.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Mark. This was a pleasure. I'm excited to see, everything that we evolve and grow together as two partners. So, yeah, all of our participants, if you want to go ahead and email me, I can connect you to Mark and his team to set up a demo, and we can take it from there. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'll connect you to the right people. All right. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, everybody.